to the regularly scheduled February 8th, 2023 regular meeting of the Midcoast Community Council. I would like to start by asking our esteemed Secretary, Scott Bolger, to take the roll.
Claire?
Here.
Dan? He must be muted.
I'm here.
Gus?
Yeah.
Here.
And Dan and Greg?
Here.
And I'm here, so we're all here.
All right, we are all here. As far as the Board of Supervisors report, I ran into Ray today at the session at Mezzaluna that Half Moon Bay Chamber of Commerce had. And he was telling me that his chief of staff, whose name I believe is Heather, COVID, and that's why she hasn't replied. So I don't expect anybody from the county, from Ray's office to be here. But I am pleased to see an old face that I also saw down at, is it Lenny Mendonca or Mendoca? Mendoca.
Neither. It's Mendonça.
Mendonça. He's Portuguese, right?
Right.
Right.
Portuguese.
All right. So Harvey, do you have something for us from the Half Moon Bay City Council?
Yeah, I have a few things. We are pleased that the county has given Half Moon Bay $2.5 million for what we're calling a Coastside Opportunity Center. Okay. And that is going to be a place where job applicants can take courses to learn about high tech or even low tech work. Farm workers can learn what they need to become farmers. It's modeled after the South San Francisco Employment Center, which is a big success. Many people have gotten jobs through that. And that's going to be a physical location. The city is currently in negotiations to actually rent the place. And by the spring, we hope that it'll actually be in operation. So that's a real boon for the whole coastside. It's not meant just for Half Moon Bay, but as the name implies, it's a coastside opportunity center. On a sadder note, the last city council meeting last night was devoted to talking about and trying to see what we could do about the horrible shooting that occurred on January 23rd. The city has worked with the county to make sure that all the victims' families have some better housing than they were in. First, the victims and their families, not the families, were taken to hotels, but they have all now been given Airbnbs so that they can cook and feel like it's a little bit more normal. That's just the start. The city has now authorized a victims fund. It's modeled on the fund that the 9/11 victims had, and it's going to be run by two organizations that are good at collecting and distributing money. So if you want to give tax-deductible money to help the victims and their families, that fund, I believe, will now be taking contributions starting right now. And 100% of the money that is contributed will go to aid the victims and their families. But along that line, there was, as usual, a lot of people who are suffering from housing shortage, from poor housing conditions. We keep hearing that. And, you know, the Chinese proverb that every crisis leads to an opportunity, people are realizing how horrible the low-income maintenance workers, farm workers, living conditions are. It's nothing new, but now with that knowledge, the feds, the state, the county are all more willing to contribute toward alleviating the housing crisis for our low-income workers. Along those lines, we have created a subcommittee of the council, the mayor and vice mayor, who are both passionate advocates for not only affordable housing, but affordable housing done soon. Those two people are going to be working with the county, state officials to see what we can actually do soon to get more affordable housing built on the coast side. We're going to have more trailers at the Hilltop Trailer Farm, mobile home park. There's going to be housing overlays for existing farms within the city limits. That's all a start. There's some very creative ideas that we're going to be exploring very soon to try to do some good to come out of this horrible tragedy, this shooting. And lastly, we have set up listening sessions so that the council can hear what community cares about prior to our priority setting session. Those dates, for those who are interested, we're going to start February 15th. That's going to be a Zoom link from 6 to 8 p.m. February 26th is going to be an in-person listening session from 3 to 5 at the Half Moon Bay Library, and that meeting will be in Spanish with English translation. The last listening session is March 2nd from 6 to 8. That's going to be in person at the Ted Adcock Community Center. All that leads up to our priority setting session on March 8th. It's going to be an all-day event from 9 a.m. to maybe 3 p.m. That's prior to setting the budget so that the council priorities will fit in with the upcoming fiscal year budget. That's all I have from the city, but I'll be glad to answer any questions anyone else has.
Before I entertain questions, Harvey, I would like to ask if you could either paste into the chat or email us the charity link that you mentioned so that we can record in the minutes, Scott, where it is we're supposed to send donations. If you don't have it available this second to paste into chat, if you could just email the council and we'll add it to the minutes if that's legal. All right, Scott.
Yeah, it sounds
All right,
good to
now
me.
we have some questions. Okay, we have some questions here. We'll start with Claire.
Harvey, it's important to me to understand the organization of the Opportunity Center. Greg and I were both at the Chamber of Commerce State of the Coast Side thing this afternoon, and everybody was really excited about it. My understanding was that it was possibly a private county/city project. Is that not true? Is it a Half Moon Bay project?
No, you're entirely right. It's the chamber's involved, the county's involved, the city's involved. It's a partnership, private government partnership.
Okay, that's great. It sounds really good. I think that Ray may end up with his office in there, but other state and county offices will also be in there to help us coordinate things. And I think it sounds like a really great thing. It's just important to me to know that it's not just Half Moon Bay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Sid Young.
Hi, Harvey. I have a few questions for you. This thing that they're setting up that you said Ray's going to have an office in, maybe.
Wait, I didn't say that. That may
Who
be
did?
true.
Claire said it. I'm sorry.
Claire knows more than I do.
Okay, but
Yeah.
that's going to be down in Half Moon Bay somewhere. It's completely different from the Opportunity Center in El Granada, right? Or are you talking about something different?
Wait, what opportunity? You're talking about Coastside Hope?
Yeah. They
Yeah.
call it,
Sid,
That's called
Sid, are you asking about the location of Ray's office? Because Harvey's not,
no,
you know,
I'm asking, let me finish what I said. Okay, you mentioned there's going to be a Coastside Opportunity Center in Half Moon Bay. Is that the same thing as the partnership that is going to be multiple entities, such as San Mateo County and Half Moon Bay and whatever? Those two separate things. I might have misunderstood everything you were talking about.
I guess I'm a little confused by your question. There
Okay.
will be a physical location,
Uh-huh.
okay, that will be partly run by the Chamber of Commerce. We're going to have RFPs for having people who are good trainers, classes. There's going to be an incubator for businesses just starting out. It's going to be a variety of different agencies and
Maybe even state and county, right?
Crystalline can probably explain it.
Okay, well.
yeah, I was going to say, let me, Sid,
I have
pause
some
for a
more
minute.
questions.
yeah.
I
Crystalline,
still
raise
have
your
some-
hand. Let's get this over with, and we'll come
All right,
back.
let me finish asking Harvey
Crystalline.
stuff, okay? Since I guess you guys
I'm
confused
trying to
me.
get this resolved, Sid.
I have other
Crystalline,
questions for Harvey.
I know you do. I know you do.
Okay, thank you.
Crystalline, are you prepared to comment? Are you prepared to comment, Crystalline, on what Harvey is discussing?
Yes.
Okay, well, can I
All right.
finish my
Please
other
fill us
question?
in, fill us in, and then we'll go back to Sid.
Can I finish my questions to Harvey or not?
No, I want Crystalline to finish giving the information she has on the point you raised. Then we'll go on to your question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The Opportunity Center is funded by the county, $2 million grant. There's one in South San Francisco that's been a pilot, and we're following their model. The reason that the chamber was able to get involved in the beginning was because there is the coast-side component to it. The city is the fiscal managers of it, but they were very keen and clear that this is a coast-side project, not just City of Half Moon Bay. So all of the vendors inside will be full coast-side. And then the center is going to be in downtown Half Moon Bay, near transportation and all of that, because there's only so many places that can fit something as large as we're going for. By coincidence, the building that we are looking at that we think will house the Opportunity Center, Ray and his team happened to be looking at spaces in the same building. So it was really a beautiful happenstance that they might be located right next to each other. Ray's team is working with the state teams to make his office a landing place for all of the coastside reps so that they can have a uniformed location. So it's just really beautiful coincidence that we'll all be in the same spot if everything works out the way that we have our fingers crossed it will.
Sorry, one quick question about, is it going to be named the Opportunity Center, or are you going to think of another name so people don't get confused with the one that's right in El Granada? That's called the Opportunity Center as well.
So for those who don't know, Coastside Hope's original name was the Opportunity Center. They have given us the rights to use that name since they go by Coastside Hope now, and that's how most people know them. So with their blessing, it will be the Opportunity Center of the Coastside.
And they will retain the name Coastside Hope and their location, right?
Yes, they're completely independent.
Okay, well, can I go back and ask Mike Harvey questions now?
Yes, you may. It's now time to go back to other Harvey questions.
Okay. Okay. So one of the things you mentioned, Harvey, was about housing, and there's Miramontes Point Road where Moon Ridge is. That's not within the city limits at the moment. I know you guys are trying to annex it, right? But it seems like there's still more land there that they could build more housing if MidPenn wanted to jump up and start doing it through the county, right? Do you think?
That's one possible location. Yeah.
Okay. And then there was some discussion on next door, but I thought where the mushroom farm that's behind Spanish Town, some people said that's within the city limits. And I said, no, I think only the one across from Ocean Colony that mushroom farm was in the city limits. The other was unincorporated San Mateo County. Is that right?
You got it backwards. The mushroom farm on Highway 92 is half within the city and half within the county. The mushroom farm on Highway 1 is completely within the county.
Oh, I thought that was Half Moon Bay because I looked on the zoning map and it looked like it was. It's right next to Soil Farm. It's on your zoning map as being, never. Okay, so I have that wrong. And then the other question was, what about for housing? Is there any movement on looking more about building on the Stone Pine Corporation Yard 20-acre lot that they're only using about a quarter of at the moment?
That is one possible.
Off of 92 and Stone Pine.
Yeah, that is one possible.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Me too.
Okay, and then, sorry. The last question. When you're looking at your, I guess you would call it, I forgot what you called it exactly, listening sessions and for your planning of how you're going to fund your your city planning next year or budget. Your stormwater budget for the last 5-year CIP was 10 million underfunded. So obviously that needs to be looked at. And I'm wondering if you guys have moved that up a few notches to really give actual funding to it on your capital improvements.
Yeah, we have a very good fiscal team. I am confident that we will do the right thing about funding the sewer funds.
No, stormwater, I said.
Oh, stormwater. Huh.
Yes, your stormwater, if you look on your 5-year capital improvement for Half Moon Bay, it's $10.6 million unfunded. If you look at the 5-year plan of what they wish they could, it's a wish list basically, because that much of it is unfunded of all the stormwater things that they want to do. And obviously from the last 2 years in December and January of this year, we know you need to work on stormwater runoff.
Right. Sid, I think we have to let other people talk.
Yeah. No, I just wondered if
Harvey, did you want to say anything?
I just want to ask you to put a priority on that for everybody's sake.
The way to do that is to come to the listening session and express that desire. So put it on the list.
Right. I'm going to put those down on my notes. Yes, thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, so Ann, did you have a question for Harvey? Ann, your hand is raised. All right, hearing none. Then I'm going to suggest, I believe it's within my prerogative to do this. Claire, stop me if I'm wrong. George Dale is here early. Rather than waiting for 7:45, where we had put him outside of the announcement window because we thought he couldn't make it. He's here now. So
I
I would
finally
like
got
to.
Oh.
Oh, Ann, you're here?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I could not unmute myself and I was going to every screen imaginable. I really apologize. Do you still have a moment for me? If not, I can come back later.
I do if you have a question for Harvey. Do you have a question for Harvey?
I do, actually. I did participate in the meeting yesterday, just listening in on their city council meeting. And I wanted to maybe offer a suggestion or just ask him, is it a possibility for people who would like to build ADUs to provide housing for others in the community? Is there any way that the city can work with the county, with the state to offer maybe tax incentives, something that can help so that other people can kind of do their part? If they would like to. Some of the participants in the meeting discussed that they would like to see if they can help. And I thought, well, if it was made possible, the fastest way to get housing would be with ADUs. And just it. Thank you.
Yeah. We have discussed possibility of deed restricted to low income for low income occupants. That has not been. We haven't agreed on how to do that, but that is one possible way to get more low income housing. You know, ADUs by themselves are not guaranteed to be low income housing. The rents can be very high, and our city council is focused on providing housing that's truly low income, and that's hard to do. But if somebody were willing to build an ADU and have it deed restricted for low income or very low income, that is something that would certainly give them priority in our Measure D's allocation. So,
Harvey, thank you very much for attending. Is there anything else? Okay, I'm going to mute Harvey.
Greg, are you coming back to public comment, right?
I will, but we're not done with announcements. So, Claire, you wanted to make a point?
I was just going to respond to your question to me. You can rearrange the order of the agenda, but only with the consent of the council.
All right, then I must ask for a vote. Do we have the consent of the council to move George Dale from 7:45 to now in the announcements portion of the agenda? Scott, can you call a roll?
You got it. Greg?
Yes.
Claire?
Yes.
Gus?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And me. So 5-0. Please change the order of the agenda.
Okay, so I'm now going to include George Dale in the comments here. And George, I'm going to take great personal risk here and try and share my screen and show the flyer that you presented. Okay. All right, go for it.
First of all, good evening, and thanks for putting me on the agenda. I don't know that I've ever been the subject of a 5-0 vote before, so I appreciate it. I'm here at Greg and Claire's invitation to talk about our care program. Sorry that there are other care programs on the coast, but it is part of Sheriff Corpus's promise during her campaign to set up 3 groups, one on the coast, one in what we call North County, which is north of 92 on the Bayside, and the other one being South County, of 15 people each, where we're trying to achieve diversity of touch points with the Sheriff's Department. This is not an oversight effort. This has nothing to do with fixing San Mateo and with what the Board of Supervisors is considering and working their way through. These 2 things can live in harmony with each other. but this is an opportunity to sign up and have sort of a direct access to this evolving effort. So currently, at the minimum, we're going to have quarterly meetings with the sheriff and with local command staff, where it's a two-way conversation, where she comes and talks about the things that she wants to implement, whether they be staffing, whether or not they be patrol patterns, or whether they be county-wide issues such as recruiting, technology, the use of mental health, all the things that generally get talked about lately in regards to policing or sheriffing, I should say, as well as the issues that concern. As most of you would know, she has a very soft spot for the coast side, having spent a part of her career here. I am a volunteer at present. Everything is only a month old. I have a property up on Kings Mountain, so I am quasi coast side, and certainly have spent a lot of time along the coast. So I guess I'm just here to sort of highlight this and take any questions that people might have. We sent out a reminder. The deadline is next, the 14th, to highlight Sheriff Corpus's Policing with Heart thing. We made it on Valentine's Day. We've had about 50 people sign up as of about an hour ago out of 45 slots. And we anticipate with the reminder that we'll get quite a few more until the deadline. And so we're quite happy with the turnout so far, but really want to make sure we have representation. We've had quite a bit. Last comment, we've sort of have a few in La Honda, quite a bit in Half Moon Bay, maybe one person in Pacifica, one person maybe in Montera. I'm not sure exactly. I didn't do a map, but it's a nice array, but nobody in Pescadero and not very many people up in Pacifica. So that's why I'm here. Thank you again for making room for me to butt in here. So
I should mention that I posted your email as a PDF on our website, but as Len Erickson pointed out at the start of the meeting, I may not have created the PDF properly. So people may try, click on links on that and not get to you, but there's at least an email address in that flyer that they can write to.
That's an email address that I monitor constantly, and we will certainly get people the links. I'm not awake enough to cut and paste it into the comments like I should be able to do, but I'll work on that.
So we may have a question for you. Sid, did you have a question for George, or are you waiting for
Yes.
public comment?
Well, I was going to say that I took a quick picture of the thing you posted that you've taken down already, but obviously on Zoom, you can't click on a link. So I was going to ask him to post it into the comments so we could sign up if we wanted to. But this is a countywide thing, not just for the coast side or District 3, right?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay, so, and it's not the sheriff's oversight. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I comment?
As I said, though, I did put the flyer on the website in the agenda post.
And I'm
You
typing
have it
the
linked.
email address. I just put it into the comment section, the chat room.
Thank you so much.
And can I comment, Greg?
Yes, please.
In regard to what Sid just said, the entire program for citizen advisory is countywide, but it's divided into 3 parts, one part of which is the coast side. So there is a separate group of people on the coast side advising the sheriff, and I would encourage anyone who is the least bit interested to sign up and apply for it. It will not get lost in the shuffle.
All right. And seeing no other government officials, Claire, you and I both have announcements to make on the agenda. You were going to talk about youth and family mental health services.
No, not me.
Really? Okay. Let me check the agenda. I know I was going to mention that I created a homegrown application for the vacant MCC council seats. It's available on the website. And of course, if there's something wrong with it, please do write me. and I will send you a copy in whatever format you want, Word or PDF. Obviously, we know several of you, but we just thought it would be proper decorum to have a form you can fill out, and you can do as much or as little with it as you'd like. And of course, you're welcome to attach other things. You don't necessarily have to type everything into the form. If you got a resume or some other statement of purpose, we'd be happy to entertain attachments. David Cosgrave, did you have our beloved CERT former a public service announcement of some form?
Turn that off. I was trying to take my hand down. CERT's going well. We got classes coming up, but I'm here to speak for the county on the Department of Emergency Management, and kind of ties into your storm stuff coming up. But I need to leave. But just want to make sure everyone's aware that the county has worked with FEMA and Cal OES to get qualified for the individual assistance, and that we had a mobile intake center open today in Pescadero, which will be there again tomorrow. Friday and Saturday it'll be in La Honda, and then Sunday and Monday it'll be in Half Moon Bay. Those are simply assistance in using the website to sign up for assistance with FEMA. It's a two-step process that's really important to understand. Is you have to register with FEMA before March 16th, and FEMA will forward the registration on to the Small Businesses Administration. And we've already had people saying, well, I'm not a business, but FEMA doesn't have the checkbook on disaster relief. It goes through SBA. They handle the money. So the next step in it, people will get a registration or an application from SBA, and they need to fill that out. So you can do it online already. There's already 400 people that are signed up within the county for disaster assistance. But the main event, or the main assistance center, will open tomorrow at the event center in San Mateo, the fairgrounds, from the Delaware Street entrance. And that's going to have a full team from FEMA, from the state, and all kinds of agencies that will assist people in their claims if they've had any kind of disaster effects. The county is also working with FEMA and the state to get registered for the public assistance. So the sewer authority, the harbor district, any kind of special district or a public agency that's had damages. They did their inspections a week ago, and so far they haven't announced that we've qualified for it, but we're pretty confident we will. And that's the same deadline. So all the governmental agencies will have to go through the same process of registering their damage as well. And that's yet to be determined on the process of that. So I just want to make sure everyone's aware of those because of the March 16th deadline. If you have any questions on that.
Yeah, David, I have some questions because I had been corresponding with Kishan, who's the general manager of the sand plant, and he had not received any replies on the material he had forwarded, he thought, to FEMA. So I wrote Ray, and he put me in touch with Adam Eli. And my question is he the fellow that we should be asking questions of regarding the scope of the assessment?
The assessment is done by FEMA and Cal OES, and that's already been completed. And until they give the determination, there's nothing at the county level. We're waiting for their decision. They just yesterday put Alameda and another county on the eligibility for it. So we're expecting within the next day or two that we would go on there as well. But even with the independent or the individual assistance, there were certain thresholds and certain things that qualified for it. So not everything that people claim for damage would get us there. But between all the road damage and all the other stuff, they were pretty confident that we were going to qualify for that. And we're hoping to see that within the next day or two.
I guess my simplest question is, should we be writing to Adam Eli or to you with questions about this process?
You can write to either one of us, but we're both waiting for the answer from FEMA.
Okay.
From the state.
All right. Looks like we have questions from Claire.
Yeah, I'm sorry to be asking so many questions, but I got a flyer from FEMA at my front door. I don't know if they're giving them to everybody or if it's just because I reported that my fence was blown down. What is the threshold at which point this is something that individual community members should pursue?
Yeah, I do not know the thresholds for them because there are so many things that can qualify and so many factors that they take in. So if you did the survey, that was just so that we could determine where there were places to get us to qualify for that. Now you need to either go online and register for the assistance, or go to the event center, or come to Half Moon Bay on Sunday or on Monday and register. That's your official registration with FEMA. The survey that was put out for the unincorporated county areas and the cities all reported their damage that they had from residents. That was just to get on the map so that FEMA could get an assessment of whether we, as a whole in the county, qualified for assistance. Now it's down, now that we qualified for that, it's at the individual level to register with FEMA. If that
Should I even bother pursuing this? Okay, is this for really major, horrible things?
There is a thing I can try to post it in the chat. The most common reasons is if it isn't a qualifying event, but I don't know what the disaster assistance will give. There's several things that'll be available at the event center if you can get there.
Okay,
that's much more help than going online and calling them, because you can talk to them face to face. But if it's a small amount of damage, and you have, number one, if you have insurance, if you haven't made an insurance claim, they won't process it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Len Erickson, you had a question for Dave?
Yes, I know talking to county parks that they at our last meeting noted that the bridge on the California Trail, Coastal Trail section of Dardanelle Trail in Fitzgerald Marine was hit by a tree, and they confirmed that needs a full replacement. Is that something they would work through your process to move forward, or is there some other route that county parks would take?
You know, the county was one of the partners that met with FEMA, and the roads and parks did meet with FEMA to give them a list of their damages. So they would work with FEMA to get registered for that.
Okay.
Next, we have a question from Scott.
I just want to clarify. You said at the fairgrounds in San Mateo, there's going to be an event there. Is that tomorrow, 9/2/9?
Yeah, tomorrow it opens at 9 o'clock till 7 p.m.
Okay.
And that's the Disaster Recovery Center. So that's a full-scale complex. I mean, there'll be so much, I can't even list everything that's there, but it's on the county website, from housing assistance to rent assistance to lost wages. People that may have lost their IDs in the flood can get their vouchers to the DMV to get priority. So there's a lot of assistance available to them there.
And you mentioned also there's going to be one in Half Moon Bay. Is there a similar event?
The outreach to the coast was just to make sure that people that are not internet savvy to go online and sign up for it. It's basically, there's about 6 members with tablets, and you can sit down with them and they can help with questions because they have knowledge of it, and they work through getting you registered for it. Okay. I was there in Pescadero today, and I know the same thing. I live in El Granada. Just trying to get anything to verify your physical address is difficult because we all live in PO boxes, or at least our mail on the coast goes to PO boxes. So that's one of the difficult things they have to do, is you have to produce, your identification, and then you have to prove that you're a resident, a primary, or a renter at that's your facility. So there's a lot of things that they can help you with.
So to do that one, you'd have to go to Pescadero then to see someone in person?
It was today and it's tomorrow. It's going to be in La Honda on Friday and Saturday, and Half Moon Bay on Sunday and Monday. But also you can go to the FEMA disaster assistance.info, I believe it is, and register there. You just got to look for the San Mateo County site.
Thanks.
Sure.
I'm sorry to beat this to death, Dave, but maybe the use case I'm going to bring up would be helpful to discuss. So I lost driveway gate, side gate, and part of a fence. My guess is it's a little south of $10,000 worth of damage. The deductible on my insurance policy is $10,000. So if I file an insurance claim, it's not going to go anywhere anyway. Are you saying I still have to file an insurance claim and then be under the deductible?
I can't claim to be an expert on their things, but I'll post the number. There's 5 reasons for the denials. And from in my discussions with them, most of because I've had people, concerned about the trees that eroded their roads, their driveways, and it mostly has to do with the residence itself. So the fences and driveways were not so much in their scope that I could hear, but there is possible assistance. So I don't want to say don't file. I coined a term that said file and find out, right? Just go ahead and registering with FEMA and then go through the process would be your best way, because otherwise you don't file by the 16th of March, you're eliminated.
Okay. Dave, thanks for coming. Thanks for your time.
No problem. Thank you.
We move next on to public comment in general. And no surprise, we have Sid Young.
Sorry. Yes, I attended 2 meetings since our last MCC meeting, I think. Maybe not, maybe one was before, but because you had your special meeting then. CCAG had their stormwater meeting, and also the Parks Commission and county parks. We still don't have a representative. I guess Ray doesn't realize he has to appoint someone, or he's casting about for a parks commissioner, but Neil Merrilees is termed out. So our District 3 doesn't have a commissioner at the moment. And during their meeting, they talked about not having enough staff people to have the next meeting is in March. And their next meeting, which is usually attended by several outside people, such as myself, Fran Pollard, a guy from, I forget his name, but he's always calling in about the flood park thing they're putting together from Menlo Park. But people that live on that side of the hill are not going to be disadvantaged by the fact that the Parks Commission is talking about only holding in-person meetings over in Redwood City starting in March. But I would like the MCC, if they could, to write a letter on behalf of co-siders, because that disadvantages us. We cannot tune in and make comments during their meetings if they don't hold a hybrid meeting. And I think it's kind of ridiculous, their excuse why they're not going to do it. But let's face it, they don't probably want to hear from us, because we're the ones that are pretty vocal about things that are not right, like the drainage from Quarry Park, or the fact they've got 3 coastside parks closed right now. I think they still have part of the bluffs are open for the Gene Lauer Trail, but there's a mudslide on the stairway up to, I don't mean stairway, the trail from the parking lot on Airport Street up to the bluffs. That might be closed unless they've dug it out. It's still closed at the north part of Devil's Slide Trail because of the landslide. And of course, they've closed the Moss Beach Park. I don't know why. And the Seal Cove staircase was damaged in the storm, so that's closed. And like Len mentioned already, the bridge from the Dardanelle Trail over to the parking lot on California Avenue is closed. It's storm damage because of a tree falling on it. So the whole park is closed because of that. They have a, it's closed at the, you can't go on the Marine Reserve at all right now, basically, unless you're sneaking in, I guess. So
I would like to do 2 things with your comment. Can we say you're done?
I'm done, only that I did request that maybe you guys could write a letter. I'm going to write one.
I want to punctuate that. Scott, would you note for the minutes the suggestion made by Sid Young that we write a letter to the Parks Commission about the location of their meetings and the need for including coastside residents, in some form, hybrid meeting or whatever?
No, my request is to have a hybrid meeting so that coastside residents are not disadvantaged and have to drive to Redwood City to attend an meeting. Okay, thank you.
I got it. I think that was a good comment, Scott. You make that in the notes, and we'll consider writing that letter in a future meeting.
Okay, so
we also have Len.
Let me ask you one question. How far is it? Like 16 miles from, let's just say, my neighborhood to the meeting in Redwood City? It's far, right?
It's 40 miles.
It could be 60 to 20
round
trip.
Okay.
But the more important issue is when is the meeting? What's the weather like? What are the road conditions?
Okay.
It's the first Thursday of every month at 4 p.m. So commute time.
Okay.
I got it.
Lynn Erickson, I know you wanted to make a public comment.
Yeah, one note with respect to the prior item, in conversations with Lisa Ketchum, who has been the commissioner for the Planning Commission, she in effect is sort of continuing in that role or in touch with the organization until action is taken. So is there any reason why Neil Marilees couldn't play in that role?
He's termed out, but she's not.
Well,
That's
even
my
the member of the commission who was termed out is remaining active until replaced.
That's correct.
I can only tell you that Neil has not been
Okay,
on the
so
January
Sid-
or the February Parks meeting.
Said that is up for Lisa to comment on, and she was starting to do that.
I'm sorry.
Oh, did you want me to answer again?
Well, you did,
Yes.
but I think you got talked over.
Yeah, the planning commissioners, even if they're termed out, they can stay on until replaced. And I assume this is all board commissions and because they're all under this sort of same rules. So they don't like a vacancy. They'll generally let them stay until somebody else is appointed.
Okay,
Well,
Lynn, what was the comment you wanted to
Neil
make?
has not been attending. That's all I'm trying to say.
Lynn, what was the comment you wanted to make?
The comment I wanted to make has to do with transportation. There have been damages to the roadway, in particular at Surfers Beach, a couple of points that have been damaged, but it's not a high priority as many of the other issues being considered. That being said, transportation projects, especially those managed by Caltrans, have a long lifetime, and it's important to stay in touch with them. So I spent some time doing that, but I believe the council would be well advised to have a meeting to look at the status there, either on the regular agenda or a special meeting. And without going into the details, certainly the agencies themselves are pressed in other fronts, but I think there are still important things to consider. So I just ask you to look at where you might bring that up as a council activity, either in a separate meeting or a council meeting.
All right, Scott, would you make sure the minutes reflect that request?
Thank you.
Okay, Lynn. Fran Pollard.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I want to second Sid's request that county parks hold hybrid meetings like everyone else does. They have to hire somebody, or that maybe somebody from the county can come over and run their meeting for 2 hours a month. That's all it is. So it would make it a lot more convenient for co-siders than to have to go to Redwood City and come back at night. Thank you very much.
Okay, Michelle.
Yeah, there was a mention about Caltrans. At the panel meeting, Crystalline, who's been warring with the Caltrans people on a number of reasons, walked up to the lady who had come to the panel meeting. She represented Marin. We are District 4. We are not Marin. And so Crystalline pointedly asked her, who is our representative? And finally she caved and she said, we don't have one.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, thanks, Sid.
Sid, I'm going to have to mute you. All right, Michelle, did you have anything more to say?
Nope, just want to let you know.
Thank you for that. Just so people know, I'm in the habit of lowering hands and muting people after they finish speaking as much as I can keep up with it. All right, I already mentioned we posted the application and I'm happy to send it out in other formats. Do we have any other public comment? Seeing none, I propose to move to the consent agenda, which includes approving the minutes for January 25th and approving a resolution to continue the virtual meetings, which we're still allowed to do. I have to be a troublemaker and request that we pull from consent the minutes for the regular meeting. because they didn't get posted until just about an hour before the meeting. You haven't had time to see them. And I've still got to research why I am quoted as giving a presentation on gun violence, because I just can't remember that I did it. Although I have one from 2013 that I worked for months on, and I have statistics galore. But I think we all need time to review those minutes. So I'm pulling them from the consent agenda. Claire, I don't think I need a vote to do that, right?
No, we just added.
But then I would, okay. Then I would add that we need a vote to approve the continuing resolution for these Zoom meetings. If Scott could call the roll.
Okay, so Greg,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Dan. Is Dan?
Yes,
He's there.
Okay,
yes,
cool.
yeah. I'm just not here 100%. Thank you.
And Gus. I'm looking.
You said yes, but you didn't hear him.
Okay.
You saw him say.
Okay. So
All right.
5-0 for the continuing resolution.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the regular agenda, we already handled item 4A about the Sheriff's Care Program. We next have item 4B, MCC role in reviewing planning applications. Claire, do I need to make anybody co-host here, like Lisa or you?
Lisa.
Okay, Lisa's now co-host. I'm going to go on mute and you're going to lead this, right?
Right. Okay, so this is an item which I think is actually pretty important. It may be a little in the weeds at times, but it's a key part of what the MCC does. As you know, we're a municipal advisory body to the Board of Supervisors and to county government in general. And in our role as reviewing referrals for development in the Midcoast, we are both representing the community and we're advising the Board of Supervisors. This is one codified function of the MCC that not everybody is totally aware of, but it is very important and it is something that the county looks for us to give them our view of what is being proposed for development in the area. And we've been doing this for a number of years. And tonight, Lisa Ketchum, who developed most of the planning and zoning protocols for the MCC back in the day, and who is currently on the County Planning Commission, will give us an overview of how planning actually works in this county and how the MCC is involved. And I'll give you a brief comment after that about how we actually do the reviews on what projects are referred to us. And then we'll open it to questions and comments. So I'll turn it over to Lisa, please. Go ahead. Welcome.
Oh, hi. Holy cows. Oh, here we go. I'm trying to share my screen here. Can you see my slide presentation?
Yes.
Great. So as Claire said, this is in the weeds. If you didn't see this in 2018 when I presented it at MCC, or perhaps even if you did, you forgot it all. Hold on just a second. Oh, man, it's the little things. Sorry.
It's on the MCC website, Lisa, this presentation.
Yes.
Good.
Oh, now I can see my page. Okay, so you probably all read it by now. Here we go. So the California Coastal Commission, which we call CCC, so it administers the Coastal Act and we skipped some. Here we go. Skip this. The California Coastal Act Initiative. The California Coastal Initiative AKA Prop 20, was overwhelmingly passed by voters in 1972, was made permanent by the California Coastal Act of 1976. Now, these policies underlay all the zoning, planning, permitting issues here. And just some of the policies, the main ones, some people aren't aware of these in the coastal zone. The priority here to the policies, the goals, to protect and expand public access to the shoreline and recreational opportunities and resources, protect sensitive habitats, scenic resources, community character, protect productive agricultural lands, commercial fisheries, archaeological and cultural resources, protect natural shorelines, and minimize risk from coastal hazards, establish urban-rural boundaries, and direct new development into areas with adequate services to avoid wasteful sprawl. We have an urban-rural boundary around the Midcoast. You'll see this in a further slide. And it has worked since this time, since 1976, to prevent sprawl. And the priority here in the Coastal Act is coastal dependent, visitor serving development, not residential, sorry to say. That's not the priority. And also it includes to provide lower cost visitor serving and recreational facilities, to ensure new development has adequate public services, that new service capacities do not induce growth inconsistent with resource protection. In other words, you can't add infrastructure that's way beyond what's needed fairly soon, and that stimulates growth. And then this other piece is important to keep in mind, maybe reassuring to some and irksome to others, that Highway 1 shall remain a scenic 2-lane road in rural areas. That means north of Montera, south of the city of Half Moon Bay, 2-lane road. It's in the Coastal Act. So the Coastal Commission administers the Coastal Act and has jurisdiction over land use and development regulations in the coastal zone. The local coastal program, which we call the LCP, so the Coastal Act is supplemented by these LCPs, which are approved by the Coastal Commission and administered by local governments. In our case, local government is the county. San Mateo County's LCP applies to the unincorporated areas of the coast side. It's pink on the map. The blue line is the coastal zone, and the pink area is the county unincorporated portion of that. Coastal cities, including Half Moon Bay, have their own LCPs. You can see Half Moon Bay's there in blue. So here's the hierarchy. We've got the Coastal Act, Coastal Commission administers, and then San Mateo County has their LCP and zoning regulations, and the Board of Supervisors and Half Moon Bay has their own, and the City Council. So in 2012, well, the Midcoast LCP was first approved in 1980 or something like that. So in 2012, there was an update just for the Midcoast. Here's your urban-rural boundary I was talking about. So this major update was undertaken from 1999 to 2012, something of a major effort, and to improve Coastal Act consistency, to update Midcoast baseline data and policies, and to reduce appeals of out-of-scale development. You'll see links through here, and it's because this slide deck lives on the MCC website on the planning and zoning page, so you can refer to it later as you need it, kind of a thing where you need to know something and, oh, that was in that presentation, you can look it up. And so the City of Half Moon Bay has its own LCP. There's a link. The northern city limit is the center of Murata and Alto roads, except for the Cherry Stem, which is west of Highway 1 from Coronado to Sam Chatter's house. Just curious, can you see my cursor moving on the slide?
Yes.
Cool, okay, good to know. The Midcoast residential growth rate limit, just throw this in here, not everybody is aware of this. So and this is in the LCP, it's a policy. New residential construction is limited to 40 dwelling units per year. New accessory dwelling units, ADUs, are included in the annual limit. The total number of approved ADUs is limited to 466 in the coastal zone. Let me just clarify, the 40 dwelling units per year, that's just the Midcoast. The total ADUs are limited 466 to the whole coastal zone, down to South Coast and everything. Of course, nobody really knows how many ADUs there really are because probably there are many that don't have permits. Anyway, the time that's limit is applied is when the building permit is issued. Exception here is new units with affordability restrictions can exceed the annual limit, but the growth rate 3-year average must not exceed 40 years. So they have to make up for that those extra units that went in within the 3-year period. And then just here's some numbers just on the time I've been involved with this each year, and then the number of units that got building permits in those years. And it's interesting to, well, first of all, that none of these years did we ever come anywhere near 40 units. The county has, since this growth rate limit was applied in 2012 with the update, the county has never had to enforce it. And but it's interesting to see here how the ADUs are going up. Anyway, there's that. Now this is the Midcoast land use plan, and so this is in the LCP. And so the LCP has two parts, basically the land use plan, which has the map as well as all these policies, and then the implementation plan, which is also called zoning regulations. So people think that the zoning regulations are just a thing the county has, but no, they're actually part of the LCP. And if the zoning regulations in the coastal zone are changed, the Coastal Commission has to certify that. The land use plan specifies the kinds, locations, and intensities of allowable development. The implementation plan includes zoning districts with development standards to implement the land use plan, and amendments to the LCP land use plan or to the Cook County zoning regulations for the coastal zone require certification before they can take effect. This is not insignificant because every time the county updates the zoning regulations, there may be some state requirement or something, and they don't go into effect in the coastal zone until they send that off to the Coastal Commission. It all takes a while, and then often the Coastal Commission come back and say, well, we want you to modify this, and so then you have sort of two sets of regulations. So it is complicated. Okay, so I don't want to go over this in detail, but just to show you the zoning districts that we have in the Midcoast, there's 2 slides of this. And to get a sense, you can see the abbreviations that are on the map. Here's the definition of what that means. And in addition to these designations, so R1, S17, that's mostly your residential neighborhoods, single family. PAD is agriculture. Anyway, so all districts in this whole area in the Midcoast also are all CD. I didn't put the CD over and over on the map, but they're all CD and they're all DR. And that means, so the Coastal Development District means they need coastal development permits when development is approved. And design review, if it has a residential component, they have to go to the Coastside Design Review Committee and get the design reviewed. And then Seal Cove is also all GH, Geological Hazard District, special regulations for that because it's something of a geological hazard place. So this is the south part of the Midcoast, same stuff. Point out one thing to you here. The CCR district is Coastside Commercial Recreation. These commercial districts are west of the highway, and they're more for visitor serving. This is, the harbor area along there, part of Princeton. And then on the east side of the highway, you'll see this C1 districts. Those are the neighborhood commercial, and they're more for the neighborhoods. Whoops, my slideshow starts to work on its own. So the district ordinances include basically the purpose of the district, inspirational, and uses permitted with or without a use permit, the minimum parcel size and maximum density, which is the maximum density, development standards such as building height, maximum lot coverage, maximum floor area, and all that, landscaping, parking. Performance standards are like noise, odor, lighting, vibration, trash storage and stuff. And then if you're getting into this, you're looking up a project and the zoning that it's in, also like the R1 S17 that I pointed out for the single family. So these development standards are not in the R1, they're in the S17. It's complicated. Anyway, there's a link to the zoning regulations. So I mentioned coastal development permit. This is different when you're approving development in the unincorporated areas on the bay side. Of course, they don't require a development permit, and quite often a quite elaborate project will only need maybe a grading permit or something, or not a public hearing at all. But so it's much more scrutiny in the coastal zone. Basically, all development must have a CDP or an exemption. So the definition of development is broad. Placement or erection of any solid material or structure, including a building or road, a pipe, a power transmission line on land, in or underwater, grading, discharges, a change in density. Here, I just want to explain. Density is residential units per acre, or intensity of use. That's the number of people on site for commercial development. So density, intensity, two different things, but the same concept. And land division, like subdivisions, you need a CDP. Removal of major vegetation, so pretty much everything. Even the cider house, whatever it's called, at Perch Beach. So don't want to go over this in detail, but the picture shows you some concepts here. So the Coastal Commission appeals jurisdiction, like I say, the county is approving these CDPs through the LCP, but there are areas of the Midcoast where you can appeal that decision to the Coastal Commission. And those areas are blue, like you can see along the streams, between the nearest through road and the shore, or stuff like that. But you can look at this later. I won't go into it. Oh, also for appealable major public works projects. This was one. You keep turning up these things as you work with these issues. Something will pop up. Why are they doing this? Oh, well, there's this requirement. So development requiring a use permit that is not a principally permitted use in the underlying zoning district. So there's lots of surprises. Last time I gave this, somebody asked me to include more about CEQA. So here it is. So California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA spelled with a C. It requires state and local agencies to identify significant impacts. I'm not going to read all this list, but you've already seen the neg deck to comment on that, like for the Fire Road, and but it's a different process in that they'll do an initial study to determine what level of review it needs, if it needs any at all, and then they will publish the document, whether it's a negative declaration or an EIR, and there'll be a public comment period where the public can submit written comment. There's not going to be a hearing on it, and these comments are based on the correctness and completeness or adequacy. So you submit an adequacy, and this is in terms of CEQA requirements. This is not in terms of CDP requirements. So it's a subtle difference, but there is a difference there. And the comments need to be directly focused on the correctness, completeness, or adequacy of the document. And they are submitted to the lead agency. Now, generally for, private development, the county's going to be the lead agency, but you'll have situations where there is a local agency which can act as the lead agency. For example, the firehouse in El Granada, the fire district was the lead agency for their CEQA document. And in the harbor district, they can be the lead agency and stuff like that. And so that lead agency, they'll take in these comments and they'll do what they will, and then they will say, okay, it's all good. And the only recourse, if somebody doesn't like that, is to sue. Because the arrangement is that public agencies are entrusted with compliance with CEQA. And so provisions are enforced as necessary by the public through litigation. And it's something of a futile effort in that if you do that, they will just adjust the document and say, okay, it's all good now. Anyhow, it doesn't happen often that they get sued. So planning, so this is what we were getting to today. So the planning permit, I separated this into what part of it we're talking about. So this is the staff process. Basically, the planning application is submitted, the case is opened, and the online permit center number is assigned. The online permit center, it's a link to that on the MCC P&Z page, and you can, it's public. You can see the notes staff puts there. It's all there, and you can follow along as the project proceeds. So a planner is assigned. So that one planner is attached to that project. He or she is the contact person. They check for completeness of the application, and they ask the applicant for whatever's missing. They'll send referrals to the reviewing agencies. These are basically, the departments at the county, public works, building, geotechnical. They'll send them to the water and sewer districts or any other agencies that need to review this. And those agencies will write back. They may want more information from the applicant, and they may say you need to make certain changes, and they may submit a list of conditions of approval that they want the planner to attach to the decision, to this permit. And then sort of different is where they also send these referrals to the MCC, or in the case of North Fair Oaks, and Pescadero, they have their own community advisory council. So the MCC isn't really an agency like these where they can speak with authority. They're still advisory, but they have a voice. And they, I don't want to get ahead of myself because I would talk about MCC role later. But so then we have staff level permit approvals. That's one case where there's these are for the coastal development permit. For the most part, that's the main permit required. Staff level permit approvals, there may be staff level because it's not a large amount of grading, or the county has a home improvement exception where you can get they call a CDX, that's a exemption from the CDP, an accessory dwelling unit. They don't need CDP. Those are ministerial permits. I'll explain that at the bottom. Anyway, so there's that definition. A hearing level approvals, the staff process, they will prepare the staff reports for the public hearing. They'll issue the letter of decision with the conditions of approval and that sort of thing. And then during the subsequent building permit review, the project planner is involved in the building department review of the permit and ensures that the conditions of approval are incorporated. So this discretionary or ministerial, so discretionary permits like the CDP involve judgment or deliberation, whether to issue the permit and how to best condition projects to avoid impacts. And you would have a public hearing, and we talk about it. People would say what they think. Ministerial permits they just simply apply a checklist of objective requirements, and the permits are issued by staff without a public hearing. CEQA does not apply. And an example of this would be for ADUs, building permits are like that. So once it gets to that stage, there's no more really that the public can do. County's just processing their ministerial permit. Okay, so public participation in this process, for large projects only, they have to have a pre-application public workshop before a formal application is submitted. And so the county will hold this workshop, and the applicant will present their project and listen, and the people will say what they want, and you can submit written comments. So this The written comments are submitted to the planner. And, I say you can speak at the workshop too. And then staff compiles a written report of public and agency comments, and that's then released. And this feedback to the applicant often leads to modifications before the formal application is submitted. Potential public, then there are potential public hearings if the MCC chooses to have it on their agenda. Then if it has a residential component, so if it's a house or if it's a commercial building with residential, say on the upper floor or anything like that, then it has to go to the Coastside Design Review Committee. They have public hearing. But they're only allowed, their purview is limited to the Midcoast design standards, which is another part of the zoning regulations. There's a lot of things that they cannot address. Then there's the CEQA process where the public can submit written comment. Then a decision, what am I at? Okay, so the decision public hearing, which would be at the Planning Commission or the zoning hearing officer, that's another public hearing for the public to participate. There's this some CDPs are staff level. I got to say I still don't really understand this, but basically when you get the referral, or if you look at the online permit site, it'll say whether it's a staff level CDP, and I don't know what the reasons are for that, but basically. For example, if it's going to go to design review and then it says staff level CDP, then that the Coastside Design Review Committee is the only chance to get a public hearing, and you better get your say in there. There are situations, I think, where you could, like the MCC getting the early referrals, and you could say, well, why is that a staff level referral? Well, we think that should be a hearing level, you could try to get to the bottom of it, kind of thing. Then the last item here, appeals. If there's an appeal, if it's appealed to the Board of Supervisors, or if it's allowed to be appealed to the Coastal Commission, then there's another public hearing, and that's another opportunity for public participation. So I just added this just to take a break from all those words. I just wanted to show you these two maps of San Mateo County. The one on the left, all the green areas are unincorporated areas in the county. So, a lot here west of Skyline. And then the beige areas and the gray areas are cities. And the cities have their own planning commission and their own zoning regulations. So the county planning department doesn't get involved there at all. And the map on the right is the supervisorial districts outlined in red. And you can see District 3, it's really big. And then the other 4 districts are all on the Bay side, and they're mostly, if then you compare that to the map on the left, they're mostly cities. There's a few pockets of, especially in the north part of the county, these pockets of green up here are like, here's San Bruno Park, and here's the airport. I mean, these are, it's the golf club or the cemetery, there's not much going on there. I mean, there's some significant pockets of unincorporated. You got North Fair Oaks, there's Emerald Lake Hills, there's a few places, but the vast majority, and then of course, okay, and the reason for the maps is, this is just something to mull over, that the County Planning Commission has one commissioner from each supervisorial district. And it only reviews projects in the unincorporated area. So I don't want to say any more about it, but it's something to ponder. So now to the MCC process. So the difference between the public opportunities is that the MCC receives these early referrals of the applications. It wasn't always this way. Back in the late 90s, this is even before they had design review, there were a bunch of people on MCC who were quite involved with a lot of development going on at the time, and they asked for they formed a standing committee of the MCC for planning and zoning and they asked for these referrals and to be able to comment on them. And those letters are for the most part on the MCC website. They did it. I'm impressed with the work they did. If you wanted to see examples of letters, then there was a gap there where this depends on the makeup of the council and their interests and bandwidth. So there was a gap there. And then when I came on the council in 2012, pretty much the county wasn't sending those referrals anymore. It took a while to, we had to check the permit site. And then if we hadn't received referral, we say, could you send me it took a while to get this back up again. But it is very useful. So here's the advantages. It provides an early opportunity for in-depth information from the planner and the online permit center. It's not the last opportunity for MCC. MCC can comment anytime until the decision hearing. I know when they send you the referral, it has a deadline. If you can get the comments, if they're simple, or if they're just to say we don't have a comment or whatever, basically the deadline in that case is for those agencies, and the planner wants to get the information together so they can do their staff report so they can get the thing processed. That's all it is. But basically for the MCC, you can keep commenting all the way up until it comes to the decision maker. It's not your last opportunity to comment. So, often if you have nothing much to say or nothing in the moment, you can say, thank you, and we have no comments at this time, or something like that. You can ask it opens the door, because there who the planner is, and you can have an exchange with the planner. I would recommend that only one MCC member per project, just work with the planner rather than having people inundate her, him or her. The email exchange, like I say, you can ask for documents. Like, remember I said sometimes they require that the applicant submit studies, like a biological study or a drainage study or whatever, or they might receive comments from like Caltrans or the Coastal Commission staff, and you could say, oh, we would like to see a copy of that. And anything you want. And so this, if it's an important project and you want to dig deep, that's invaluable to have that. And then to be able to follow along online, Permit Center, as to what's going on. I just wanted to say, so this exchange with the planner can result in conditions added to address your concerns before the project even goes to the decision maker. I mean, if you have a good point, if you make a good point to the planner, they can just add the condition of approval right then, just as they do from the other agencies. This has to be something pretty specific. And the example I used here, the Harbor Village Phase 2, that was the wedding building. And basically I just had a back and forth with Summer Burleson about the number of parking spaces that the Harbor Village had for beachgoers. They were way under, and she agreed that was true, so she made them add the extra spaces. And then there was some discussion about the height of the building, and then the way it looks from the parking lot, the fence, the architecture, that it was just all plain, and she agreed, and so she added these conditions. So it can be useful there, and also the public meetings, the ability of MCC to have public meetings in the coast side is just invaluable. When the applicant comes, this can result in significant project modification by the applicant to everyone's satisfaction. And of course, the example here, the biggest example, was Valimar Bluff. And where a complex, controversial project actually, when it finally came to the Planning Commission, was approved unanimously with no problem at all. And of course, this wasn't all the work of the MCC, because Green Foothills was involved, and they got a consultant to contribute a different coastal erosion study. But working in partnership with that kind of activity, providing this public venue where the public comes, the applicant comes, it's all there in public, it's much more effective. The MCC agenda item provides early public awareness, just getting the news out that this project is there. People nearby will pay attention, gives them an opportunity to comment. You hear from them. This is particularly important for projects that don't have any residential component, because they're not going to come to Coastside Design Review, and the MCC would provide the only opportunity for, this kind of discussion and input. Also, by the way, for these commercial projects where it's not going to go to CDRC, I recommend you reach out to the CDRC architects who live locally for their input, for their expertise in the MCC comments. It can be because they know about this stuff. And that if you're going to comment on a project anyway, you could ask the architect from CDRC to contribute comments about the design. I guess that's what I'm saying. And another piece here is that when MCC submits a comment letter, that's included in the staff report for the decision makers. I mean, it's in the staff report, and with, mentioning it and saying, they said this or whatever. So that's another assist. So this is just additional resources. I mentioned the MCC planning and zoning page. There's a link. It has a bunch of links to county planning and building department. It has land use regulations, studies, current planning. There's a list of major development projects that are in review, and that gets updated as needed. And then long-range planning and ordinance updates that are in process as well. And this next one here, Introduction to Midcoast Local Government and Special Districts, is another study session. Fortunately, it's much shorter than this one, but that's very. Just take a quick look just to see if there's if it clarifies some things for you. And then, City Half Moon Bay, a whole different thing. They have their own planning site, their whole deal. But if you're interested in projects in the city, there's a link to that. And so that's my presentation. I'm available for comments. Share.
Let me jump in real quick, because there's one thing I want to add to what you said, and then we'll open it for comments if that's okay with you. The reason why I wanted to agendize this, and the reason why I'm very glad to have Lisa give us this overview of what's involved in planning, is because we have had a couple of planning items come to the MCC recently, and it became clear to me that, having lost some of our previous members who were involved in this, there's a long way to go to get back to a sense of what actually is involved in planning and in giving the county or the state our opinions. Let me just tell you what we have been doing so that you know. Lisa mentioned getting referrals to the council, and you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Because I'm looking at a different screen as I'm talking to you. Okay. So what we get from the planners is all the planning documents for anything that's being proposed to be built or otherwise established on the Midcoast. All the members of the MCC get the referrals. I don't know if everybody looks at them, but everybody gets them. Our process over the last several years, which has gone through review by county council and by retreats the MCC has held, provide for a select group of MCC people to review the referrals. And when we talk about reviewing referrals, we have to be at least aware of every single thing that Lisa just talked about. We look at each one of these things that comes through and say, does it fit this? Does it fit that? Does it fit this other thing? Is there erosion involved? Is there anything else that we should be aware of? Does it meet all the zoning criteria, et cetera, et cetera? And what impact is it going to have on the community? Does it fit here? So this small group has been saying to the planner, ultimately, that we have a comment, which is a fairly significant objection or concern, or we have sort of a minor concern, or we have no comment. If we feel like it's a significant thing, we bring it to the MCC and agendize it. So there have been several things in the last year, maybe 3 or 4 that have gone to the MCC for the entire council to look at the referral and express an opinion and write a letter to the planner as an entire council. In any case, whether it's just the subcommittee or if it's the entire council responding, every member of the MCC gets a copy of what was written. And there is, although it's not quite up to date, a log of all the referrals and all the responses that have been made, which is available to the public on our website. So we also have the option, as Lisa said, of scheduling public hearings. And sometimes when we agendize things, that's the form they take. We've also sponsored pre-application workshops, which take place before the referral actually comes out. But I just wanted to let you know what our process has been in handling these referrals, because they're not simple. And I think at this point, we'll go ahead and open it to questions and comments. Greg, if you want to manage that, that'd be fine.
Oh, okay. I'm happy to manage it. I'd like to start with the council, and I see Gus, you have a question or comment?
Really just a comment, I suppose. I noticed that so all the places that are incorporated control their own zoning, and any place that isn't incorporated has effectively no control over its zoning. The county controls it. I was just sort of curious. Like, I take it, since the Midcoast has never incorporated, that people aren't interested in doing it. But I would just sort of note that the trade-off that's implicit in not incorporating the Midcoast is that we don't control our own zoning. That we are forced to, rattle cages or whatever it is we can do to try to, influence those decisions as they're made, but we don't get to make those decisions. So I was just throwing out there that observation that that's the implicit trade-off in not having incorporated the Midcoast. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Did you want to comment on that, Lisa?
Well, there have been efforts in this direction in the past, and there's a page on MCC website called Governance. I think it's under the MCC tab. And I collected this stuff there because I thought if someone is interested again in the future, they can see what was done in the past and how that went. And the other option besides incorporation would be annexation. We're in the sphere of influence of Half Moon Bay, and then whatever if any action is taken on the above, it has to be approved by LAFCO, the local agency formation commission, is it? Anyway, the information is on that page on the subject.
Thanks, Lisa.
So next council member, I see Scott has a question or comment.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. So that for me, that was a lot of information. And I just wondered if there is a work instruction for our responsibilities, so that somebody new shows up, here's the work instruction, you will be getting these tasks. Here's how you complete them, and with a list of what exactly to do. Because it's, if you start somewhere and say, I developed this whole thing, nobody really knows unless there's a set of clear instructions on what to do. And also, do the other organizations that you mentioned, like in San Mateo County, et cetera, are we part of their work instruction? Do they have to do something? Do they have to include us? Or is it just do it if a person thinks to do it? So it would be great if there was some sort of step-by-step process to do this, to execute on what you told us has happened in the past in your slide presentation.
Yeah, if only it was that easy. So I didn't know anything about this stuff when I came on MCC, and I learned, I'm fortunate to have Lenny Roberts for a mentor, but that was big. But it was just a learning curve, and nobody was doing these referrals in 2012 when I came on, and I did get one. It was just whatever. It was a house with some issues, and you know, you just learn as you go, and gradually, and so, you know, Claire was saying you have to go through all these items on every project. You could start simple, like say, okay, what are our priorities? What are council members particularly interested in when they look at a project? If it's see if it's significant enough, you know, what are your concerns? Like mine were always like, you know, the shoreline, the habitats, you know, sensitive areas, stuff like that, or, you know, bigger projects. And maybe now it's more fire hazards and drainage and stuff, but you don't have to look at them all and study everything. And it's not a matter of making a list of here's the steps you take, because you have to know all that stuff. All the knowledge has to be in your head. It's not just taking steps, it's knowing what the policies are. And so you can't just wave a magic wand and have that be in your head. So like I say, start.
No, I'm not saying it should never be in your head. It should be, here's the step one, here's where the information is. It will always be there. Get that information. Step two, execute on this process. Here's how you do it. Here's the information. So there's no really defined process then for what you're saying should happen. Just you need to know by experience. Is that what you're saying?
I'm willing to answer questions in the hypothetical, you know, like as a planning commissioner now, I'm not going to advise you what to comment or anything, but I can say, I can give you pointers about how things work or who to, something about your initial question, I remember I wanted to say, or maybe it was Gus, I don't remember. But basically the Board of Supervisors is our city council. I mean, if you think of that, if you were in Half Moon Bay, the Board of Supervisors for the unincorporated Midcoast makes the same decisions and policy decisions as the city council does for the city of Half Moon Bay. And yet all those council members live in Half Moon Bay. And in the Midcoast, our planning commission is this commission where 4 of the commissioners are on the Bay side, whereas the Half Moon Bay Planning Commission, all those planning commissioners live in Half Moon Bay. What a joy. But it's, and then you said something about other agencies or whatever. I didn't understand what were you trying to get at.
So I guess my main thought is, as always, how do you know how? And this could be taken offline. I don't mean this to be done in a public forum, but how do you know how to do your job? Where is it written? How do you know how to do your job? I see Claire wants to.
I was sitting there saying, yeah, I'm getting gesticulating here.
Yeah,
I think that there obviously are steps that you go to and do first, just to get yourself oriented with these things. And this isn't the forum to tell you exactly what they are.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
To start with. And I would say that this is basically a long-term learning process. You don't get it in a week or two. You get it in a year or 2 or 3. And it's been, I think, basically tutorials of people that have been doing it, teaching the next person how to do it.
Yeah.
Lisa, I guess Lenny taught Lisa some stuff. Lisa taught Dave some stuff. Dave taught me some stuff. And I know I've sat in Dave's kitchen and looked at all these maps and everything with him. And people almost have to show you what to look for. It's a learning experience rather than a checklist.
All right.
Yeah, it's easier to do if you look at an example and how it proceeded. You know, and there are a few on the MCC website under the planning tab. There are some projects there, some significant ones that it may or may not be helpful if you just look at, you know, they have the comments that were made.
Okay. Thanks.
Something to look forward to.
At least,
Okay.
at least you're not walking onto the job with all the MCC files and boxes on the floor at the office.
So I think one of the reasons we're bringing this up is that we have new members. This is almost like a retreat-oriented thing, but Claire's alone in her expertise on the council, as far as I know. Dan can speak up if he believes he could do this. So we really need to begin cross-training, for a better word, Claire.
Yep.
Okay. I see some members of the public here. I see your hand, Sid, but Steve Terry hasn't spoken yet today. Steve, you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you. One quick response to Scott's question is one way to get started, and the kind of is what I did way back in the day, is just start reading through all these big, long documents like the LCP and the general plan and the Midcoast Design Review Standards and the CEQA documents and land use plans, all those things. Just start reading them, and they're heavy. They're really dry. It'll put you to sleep. But I think if you can try to push through them a little bit, you'll sort of get a feeling. And then read staff reports, especially for big projects. Staff reports are really nice because they address a lot of those things specifically. But anyway, what I wanted to say was that I was one of the folks involved back in the day. Well, on your slide 4, I think it said reduce appeals of out-of-scale development. That was part of the effort, and that's exactly what it was. Supervisor Gordon, as you may remember, was representing the county planning staff, and they were just getting way too many appeals for large houses getting built on the coast. And so they wanted to do something, but there were no design standards. So you could build the biggest box you wanted to. And builders, what they typically wanted to do and still want to these days is just build the biggest house possible, because the price of the house that's sold is largely proportional to square footage. So you just get as much square footage as you can. And so houses were getting appealed, but there was no real basis for that. And so it's kind of tough. And so the whole effort of going through this process that Supervisor Gordon put together was to try to reduce and eliminate that as much as possible and sort of get everybody on the same page as to what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, builders and the community in general. And so that's when we put together the Midcoast Design Review Standards, and including the performance standards. I took a special interest in the performance standards and got George Bergman to stick those in there. And we also created the Coastside Design Review Committee. I think this was 98, if I'm remembering correctly. It was right around that time.
Yeah.
And so I think it's been a big help. I will say, though, that as far as performance standards, the county, the building department especially, has been an absolute disaster at enforcing them. And so those standards are applied to projects generally that very well, but they're never abided by. The builders don't even pay attention to them. And we saw this in the commercial at the fire station too. We saw the lighting restrictions were put in the design and they're completely ignored. And then county didn't even respect them at that point. But I don't want to get off that subject. I don't want to get on that subject. What I do want to say is, Lisa, thank you for all this, for this review. You made a comment about 2018. This is something you put together in 2018. That rings a bell, because that was when I think this body was going through, and the county is going through, trying to put together something similar to design standards for commercial. And that thing just sort of atrophied. I don't know where that went, but perhaps you want to comment on that when I'm done. The big issue I want to ask you about was if you know anything about this whole housing element thing, because starting just a week ago, February 1st, I believe, there's been a big effort by the state of California to put these regional housing needs allocation plans together. And if cities and counties didn't have their plans, their housing element done by February 1st, bad things would start happening, like a so-called builder's remedy. And that would mean that all your design standards would get scrapped, literally scrapped, and builders could do whatever they wanted to. And this has happened to some places. I think this happened in Santa Monica. I think Half Moon Bay has been approved, so that's not going to happen there. But this is all an effort to get a lot more housing in. And county has a draft housing element that they've got in with the authorities who I think are a subdivision of ABAG. I think it's the I don't remember the name, HCD or something like that. And I'm just wondering if, Lisa, you've had a chance to go through, if anybody's had a chance to go through that that housing element draft and see what impact it says for the coastal zone, the coastal zone. That's kind of really my question. And maybe this is even worthy of a future topic for the Midcoast Community Council.
Well, I did present at the MCC meeting on the housing element last year, but and I could just to put your mind at rest, the builder's remedy cannot be applied in the coastal zone. See, this is the benefit of this these extra protections in the LCP, because when the state passes these laws, the Coastal Commission supersedes these new state laws. So the county, so in order to force, no, the builder's remedy will not happen in the coastal zone. The county is concerned about it on the bay side, and they definitely want to get their housing element approved. But to your other question, what was it? Oh, neighborhood commercial. So yeah, so 2018 was my last year on the MCC, and I think it was that year or 2019. The MCC had asked for an update to that zoning ordinance. There was a couple of hotel in Montera and some other thing in Moss Beach. And when we saw what was able to be built with this current neighborhood commercial zoning we had, people were appalled. And so we had asked for several things. This is long-range planning. This is not a project. It's like redo your zoning as a long-range planning.
10-year program.
And the county put it on their long-range work plan, but it's languished at the bottom of the list. And on that topic, the Planning Commission, they're going to present at the Planning Commission meeting on March 22nd, this year's long-range work plan. And so we'll see where these projects are. And if you attend, you can ask the long-range planner questions about it and learn about it. And the table will be available. I'll put it on the MCC P&Z page, but it is an opportunity, because basically if they hear, I think probably the MCC needs to write a letter if they still want the neighborhood commercial to be on this, to be updated. They need to renew their interest in it, community interest in it, but that's not something we need to decide tonight.
Okay, thank you. But I think what you're saying is the Coastal Act trumps this housing element thing. Yeah. So the carrying capacity of the coastal zone is what really dictates housing.
Yeah, anything, the county has to initiate a process to, if they want to adopt some of those things, they have to ask the Coastal Commission, can we make these changes in our zoning? And they'll say yes or no.
All right, thank you very much.
So, point for the minutes and for Claire. Claire, if you understood what Lisa was just saying about the commercial stuff, would you take it on yourself to decide what agenda item to bring forward for that in the future?
Sure.
I don't think the rest of us here could frame it properly.
In 2019, when the last request was made, the letter's there. There's a page for neighborhood commercial.
On the county, there's a really nice county webpage on that.
The county or the MCC?
There is one at the county as well. If it was up a number of months ago, I don't know if it's still up.
How about that? Okay.
All right, so moving on.
Hold on a second, Greg. So Claire to propose agenda item for
neighborhood commercial zones.
I'm not. I'm to think about proposing it.
Okay.
Right, to consider whether it's required. She would know. All right, Sid Young.
I have a couple questions for Lisa. First of all, thank you for the really great presentation. And it's a comfort to me for the new people on the MCC to know that it's going to be on the web. I mean, it's already on the MCC website. So if you went too quickly for them, they could go back through and look at it. It's under the planning tab, you said, right? Your presentation?
Yeah.
Okay. And so I have a couple questions. There was in your slide presentation or PowerPoint, it it showed some zoning districts, and you flipped past it before I could really eyeball it. But what has happened with Plan Princeton? Anything? Because I think Dan and I, and probably you and Catherine Slater Carter, a bunch of people at that time went to all those meetings way back. I think it was 2012, and they never ever rezoned Princeton to my knowledge. Is that true?
That's true. So there's a page for Plan Princeton, and you can go read about it. And